Hello, you're watching news from Kazakhstan on K+. It is Tuesday, March 19th. These are the headlines. The opposition conducts a meeting to hold a national referendum. The quorum was in place with the task remaining to collect signatures. Leaders of the opposition and political analysts evaluate the chances of holding a referendum. Will Akorda allow a national vote? We are citizens and not percentage points. Almaty women are against cuts in maternity leave bonuses. The main political event of the week remains a meeting among Kazakhstan's democratic forces on the subject of holding a referendum. Freelance political analysts are skeptical and full of predictable irony regarding Akorda's reaction. In turn, the democratic opposition is experiencing elation. The most important thing is that the meeting was held even in the face of pressure from the authorities. The organizing committee says all that is left to do is to collect signatures. We have the views of both sides in our first report.
Is opposition moving too fast, or the people are now ready to express their will? The analysts have discussed results of a Saturday meeting on referendum initiation. The opposition is not thinking ahead, they just have the obsessive idea of a referendum. However, they do not think who will be in charge of all the election committees and when the referendum will be actually held. The politician Bolat Abilov is certain that the idea is rather timely. Being one of the referendum initiators, he believes that it will be an attempt to establish a connection between the government and the public. People want to demand changes, they want justice, people want one thing only, they want their voices to be heard. A small experiment in Almaty streets showed how interested people were in a referendum. Only 9 people out of 20 agreed to familiarize themselves with questions put to the public vote. Do you support the idea of heads of administration and election on all levels of Kazakhstan? Yes, I do. Do you support the idea of constructing a global bank of nuclear fuel in Kazakhstan? No, I don't think we need it. Do you support the idea of Kazakhstan cessation from the customs union and common economic space? No. Do you support the idea of returning strategic companies like Kazakhmys, Kaztsink and Public Bank to state property? Yes. Do you support the idea of returning strategic companies like Kazakhmys, Kaztsink and Public Bank to the state property? Yes. Do you support the idea of heads of administration and election on all levels of Kazakhstan? Yes. Each respondent takes his time studying the project bulletin questions before answering them. It is still too early to rely on timely opposition feedback. Years of dissenter suppression and people's reluctance to get involved in politics is obvious.
The leaders of the democratic forces of Kazakhstan are convinced the process has been launched. The public referendum project gives the opposition new meaning and content, and quite possibly will define its new form.
I believe the very idea of a referendum proposed by Zaurez Batalova is very constructive and appropriate for unification of civil society groups. Other initiatives only triggered cross-party rivalry, whereas this time it works towards creating a union of all political forces. I cannot say the idea was a complete success, but I believe that the event on Saturday was our best achievement over the last few years. The most important thing is that over 500 people took part in the rally, discussed the agenda and chose which issues to raise. They showed that these matters are very important for the country and it is necessary to address them via the referendum. In addition, we are talking about the action plan and are planning to collect signatures across the entire country. We understand that the Central Elections Committee will do its work anyway, but we decided to go ahead without waiting for the response and collect the signatures on our own. The referendum is still a tool that depends on the authorities' will and their current stance towards it. Therefore, to ensure transparency, the parties should have first examined the role of the Central Election Committee and the laws on elections and referendums. On the other hand, they want to send a message for consolidation to educate and enlighten the population. They want to rid of the current passivity present in the society. However, at some degree, this could be beneficial for the government too, especially if we bear in mind the last 6 months. The authorities clearly understand that something must be done and changed.
The Kazakh government and MPs continue testing the patience of women. So far, the fairer sex is holding campaigns and protest actions against raising women's retirement age and cutting maternity leave bonuses. In our next report, what women want from their statesmen.
This bill needs to be immediately adopted. What you got there, Mr. Marchenko, what is it? Mr. Marchenko, shame on you. I am not going to adopt it dressed like this. Don't worry, we'll cut and reduce everything. These kids are about ahead of the National Bank of Kazakhstan, Grigory Marchenko, and the MPs. These are the people responsible for such a disadvantageous situation of women, according to activists of Movement for Decent Maternity. Peaceful rally against cuts to maternity allowance authorized by authorities was held in Almaty on Saturday and gathered nearly 200 women. We're citizens, not the percentages. They chanted and demanded a moratorium on amendments to the law on compulsory social insurance. Recently, I had a chance to talk to the Minister of Labor and Social Security, Mr. Abdenov. What he told me is very important. He said that the income of 65% of Kazakh women doesn't exceed $200 per month. Can you believe that there is such an impoverishment in the country, which has been increasing its economic indicators lately? Yet, they dare saying that we're freeloaders for the government. In the meantime, on the other side of the city, artists and feminists held an exhibition called Different Gender. It displayed plenty of stereotypes, including one that says that women must take care of their appearance. Or this bra, for instance, symbolizes the hidden inner world of women, while the most dangerous stereotype happened to be the phrase, "You're a girl."
Если бы было все по-честному, вернее, как вот в патриархальном обществе, он зарабатывает деньги, я занимаюсь там домом.
Had it all been fair as in the patriarchal family, where the husband makes money and I only look after the kids and the household. However, I want to be an artist and I don't care about the household. I believe that feminism starts with the arts, meaning that you start appreciating your own life and values.
Свою собственную жизнь, свои собственные ценности.
Gender inequality and discrimination are the most pressing issues in Kazakhstan, according to the Kazakh suffragettes. The civil rights of women are trampled upon by the government. Reduction of maternity allowance for those who earn over $1,200 a month and raising the retirement age to 63. These are two major challenges that have united the women of different ages, professions and social statuses.
On Monday, MPs heard the head of the Anti-Monopoly Agency's report and concluded that further growth of utility rates will lead to destabilization in society. Our reporters attempted to find out what causes this fear in parliamentarians.
It's no longer possible to keep the utility rates low, said the head of Anti-Monopoly Agency during his presentation in the parliament. While speaking of the galloping prices for public services, Murat Aspan tried to reason for monopolists, explaining that utility networks have deteriorated over the years and need urgent and costly repairs. I'm afraid to disappoint you by reporting this, but utility rates will rise again since the current prices are just too low. This confession of Murat Aspanov baffled MPs. Shalatai Mirzakhmetov pointed out that utility rates continue rising constantly, but the pipes are still rusting. On top of everything, such actions of the Anti-Monopoly Agency could easily provoke a social protest. There had been protests against the increase of utility rates in the number of regions already. You should be concerned about that. This may be just the beginning for you. If it goes on like that, the whole nation may rise. Vladimir Kosarev, the head of the Communist Party, who led supporters at the rally against the approved rise of the utility rates, was surprisingly reserved. After mildly criticizing the antitrust agencies, he denied ever asking for the dismissal of the government. For how long they intend to drain people's money? Perhaps it's enough. I believe the Anti-Monopoly Committee should learn a very serious lesson from today's discussion. The rates are rising despite state subsidies. According to MPs, about $464 million of the government funds was allocated to monopolists for the repair and modernization of network equipment last year alone. While wondering where the money went, parliamentarians admitted assuming that some of it landed in the pockets of officials and utility service providers.
The temporarily banned Pravda Kazakhstana, or Kazakhstan's Truth newspaper, does not intend to leave the information field. At a press conference in Almaty, its representatives announced a move to the internet.
We will be printing the newspaper only in 3 months. Until then, we will be working our online version with a different name. We cannot use the last one due to the court order, as otherwise we could face a trial or even be shut down. The operation of the Communist Party of Kazakhstan was suspended twice last year. In addition, on March 13, 2013, the city court imposed a 3-month ban on printing the party's publication. Pravda Kazakhstan was also fined over $1,600 for violation of the publication frequency. Media expert Ruslana Taukina notes that the amount is clearly too high for such an offense since the publication became private last year, which means the fine should have been at least 5 times lower. The Communist Party is preparing for April rallies against the rise of utility rates. Meanwhile, observers believe that the persecution of the newspaper is directly linked with the activities of the supporting political organization. It feels like the authorities are lobbying for Vladislav Kosarev's Communist Party, which won seats in the parliament. They also created all the conditions for the oppression, pressure and opportunities to shut down the newspaper, so its owners could lose connections with his supporters and members.
Next up in the second half of our program. Forecasters warn of a sharp warming and abundant snowmelts. Thawed waters flooded several regions' private districts. Kazakh cartoon Yertostik and Aydarkhan hits the box office this holiday. The animated film can be viewed in 3D. The 28 Panfilov Heroes Memorial Park is to be reconstructed in Almaty, reports the media. What are the authorities up to? The spring holiday of Nowruz is being greeted with pumps and buckets in Kazakhstan. Hundreds of private homes in Karaganda region were flooded over the weekend, while roads in Pavlodar were washed off. Other regions in the country experienced similar difficulties. The water even gushed into the homes of the capital city.
We didn't have time to respond to the coming water. It flooded the house and the yard. You can see the marks. That's how high it was. Just imagine what it was like inside. Astana resident Rinat Zamanov is trying to repair his property for several days now. His house got it worst in the neighborhood because it is located in the valley. That's exactly where the flood waters went, running everything along the way. The damage is worth quite a lot, and I don't know who is going to restore everything and who should I address. Why didn't utilities and road services do anything about it? It's a real mess that repeats every single year. The reason behind these floods is the lack of a storm drainage system, say the victims, who request one for years. More than 70 homes were flooded in Karaganda region just last weekend alone. The water level in some areas reaches a meter mark, but officials insist all problems are due to unusual weather. Locals are of another opinion. They just need to lay 50 meters of drainage, but the administration head says they don't have the money, so they don't even plan it for now. I'm 80 years old and I've never seen anything like that in our country before. The floods have come up to Pavlodar region as well. 3 local villages with hundreds of homes came under threat at once. In total, there are about 2,000 people residing in the area, but luckily the situation was taken under control in time. We have pumped the water from the flooded houses and also raised makeshift dams. 19 people have already returned and currently we're working on breaking ice and cleaning roads. This year the state has allocated over $100 million to counteract spring floods. At the same time, local utility services claim they do everything in their power. For instance, a single drainage vehicle in Astana makes 17 working trips every single day. Unfortunately, the emergency personnel say when it comes to the weather, the worst is yet to come.
News agencies reported on Monday over the web that a historic reconstruction will take place in the famous 28 Panfilov Heroes Memorial Park in Almaty. The changes that will hit the park are already being met with criticism. More details up next.
The stare around the popular quote by political leader Vasily Klitschko, "Russia is great and we cannot back down because Moscow is right behind," it came to light that Almaty authorities are planning to remove this caption from the memorial. This has immediately outraged the old-school folks. We grew up hearing this, it's already embedded in our minds. I personally don't support that. They want to divide everything. It's not right to divide people because we fought all together, side by side, Kazakhs, Chechens and Russians. The victory shall not be divided. The entire Soviet Union was at war. It doesn't matter which nation or nationality, as it used to be the USSR back then. Apparently, the veterans received a verbal offer to replace the quote of political leader Klitschko with a more neutral one. They were given 3 options to choose from. The heroic deed of Kazakhstan residents is a legacy for the people, an example for future generations. Rest in peace, heroic people of Kazakhstan. Heroic active people of Kazakhstan who fought for the country will always be remembered. The authorities wanted to make a point that our independence is not at risk. Therefore, they're even ready to take such drastic measures. I believe this is clearly a provocative initiative. Chairman of Veterans of the Great Patriotic War Committee, KplusTV, Jean says that they only received a suggestion to make changes to the memorial from the City Department of Culture. There were no orders from above. In fact, the veterans already made their decision, which will be presented to officials on March 20th. We came to a conclusion that no changes are necessary. There are several reasons. This is a historical monument and it was created due to the heroic deed of citizens of Kazakhstan during World War II. What's the logic behind changing anything? Reconstruction of Glory Memorial is currently underway. We'll find out what will be left of the memorials and captions only after the repairs.
Meanwhile, head of the Moscow Film Agency and famous director Karim Shakhnazarov paid a visit to Almaty. The guest was met with full honors. His latest feature film, White Tiger, was presented to viewers as a Kazakh premiere. Our reporters sat down with the maestro.
Welcome to our city. The acclaimed Russian filmmaker and Mosfilm Studios Director General Karim Shakhnazarov is visiting Kazakhstan for the first time. For this occasion, the Almaty audience were treated to one of Shakhnazarov's films. It isn't new, but time is of no importance for good movies, says the director. I know it's been a year since the release of White Tiger. The premiere was held in Moscow last year. But this showing is organized by Talgat and I don't see a problem with it. Why not if the people want it? The film is shown all over the globe now, and it's possible for movies to be in theaters decades after the initial release. Indeed, The White Tiger was released quite some time ago and was even selected as Russian entry for the Best Foreign Language Oscar, although failing to make the final shortlist. Timur Bekmurzatov is Shakhnazarov's fan, but seems disappointed leaving the theater. I saw many of Shakhnazarov's films and I have to say that all of them impressed me much more than this work. Film critic Dmitry Mostovoy doesn't understand why the Almaty moviegoers were treated to the showing of White Tiger, since Shakhnazarov's collection has many other excellent films. Perhaps this is just an excuse for the filmmaker to visit the country. It appears that Shakhnazarov is struggling to remain an artist. For me, this film is quite strange and not in style with the rest of his movies. The combination of mysticism and reality worked perfectly in Shakhnazarov's own Zero City, but the same mechanisms failed in White Tiger. Back at the welcome party, it was revealed that Shakhnazarov's visit to Almaty coincided with the birthday of Zauresh Amanjolova, the new deputy mayor of the city. In best traditions, the reception was as high level as it gets.
Finally, Kazakh animators are preparing for a premiere. The first domestic animated film, titled Yertostik, will hit the box office in 3D. Its heroes use iPads, while amulets become their super protection. Our reporters visited the pre-premiere.
The first Kazakhstan-made animation movie Ertastik and Aydarkhan is being released in 3D. The director and the scriptwriter Zhakent Nadenov and Rustam Turtaliyev have given the folk's tale 1 hour of screening time. The movie was rated 5+ and is recommended for family viewing. It would be great to make the fairy tale up-to-date and to make it interesting. However, we don't want to entirely change the whole story because it might be ruined. We want to make it interesting for viewers. The animation movie creators say that characters from childhood have finally been voiced. For instance, the love of Batyr Ertostik looks like Akinje Alimkhan, the actress who voiced the character in Kazakh language. Around 50 animators have been working for 3 years and spent $1,200,000 to create 3D fairy tale. I think that at least 2 or 3 animation movies should be released for local cinemas like in Russia, although we are still lagging behind. Animation movies used to be drawn in China as it was cheaper. However, a 3D Ertostik was made in Kazakhstan. Kazakh even purchased special equipment that allows to transfer the actors' moves to cartoon characters. The director Tuligen Baytukenov believes that children in Kazakhstan should not be raised on foreign cartoons and that cartoons' characters should be close and understandable for them. If you watch Kazakhstan cartoons, you'll see that plot is too complicated for kids to understand. Local cartoon makers are always trying to add philosophic elements or some symbols into cartoons, but kids don't need them, they just want to be entertained. The cartoon is released by standards of Western movies. Along it, stationery and comics with characters from the cartoon are also produced. The opening night in cinemas is scheduled for March 21st. The movie will be both in Russian and Kazakh languages.
That is all we have time for now. Thank you for watching. See you tomorrow.